What's going on, everybody? My name is Finn and welcome to my den, and today we're going to be talking about kind of a salty subject to some Nintendo fanboys, but we will be going over the items the company has made over the years. This ranges just from innovation that backfired to stabbing somebody in the back and creating a mortal enemy in the gaming world. Let's get right into it. The Virtual Boy was released in 1995, so I wasn't even a nut yet. However, the echoes of its failure are still ringing about today, mainly because it was one of the first VR consoles ever to come out, and it promised bringing virtual reality back in the 90s, when really all it did was bring headaches and eye strain and nausea to basically everybody who played it. You had to be superhuman to come out of this thing unscathed, because it's literally just looking at monochrome red and grayish things through your eyeballs 2 inches from your face. So it wasn't a good time for anybody. I'm happy it only lasted for about 2 months. And no, I am not kidding, it was actually canceled just a few months after the release, and Nintendo kind of just never looked back at it. And I can't blame them for it. Now, moving on from that colossal failure, we have the N64 controller, which I don't even own to show you because it's just kind of a gross thing to have in your home. Now, this might be a hotter take for some than others because those who grew up with the N64 have kind of great nostalgic memories from it, but just looking at it, it doesn't take a scientist to notice that I don't have 3 hands. This gamepad design was definitely a venture off the well-beaten path for gamepads. I guess I can give some props to Nintendo for trying to be innovative and, like, you know, go away from the well-beaten path, but all it really led to was a lot of people complaining about how cumbersome and uncomfortable it was to use, and I kind of have to agree with them. Every time I've tried to play it, it just felt like my fingers were getting crushed in between each other, and it just felt clunky overall. Maybe designing a controller based off of your target demographics anatomy would probably work better. Next up was one that I didn't really even know existed until like a year or two after it was already out. It was the Wii U. I can speak from experience when I say that most people didn't know about it. I had like one friend purchase it, and watching him play it did not entice me into wanting to play it at all. It had a very limited selection of games at the beginning, and most people didn't even know like what the console was. It had super confusing marketing campaign, and if you're gonna title your next console based off your old super selling console, it kind of has to lead up to the hype, and it's very easy to see that the Wii U did not match the hype by looking at the numbers on which they sold. 13.5, 101 million. Bruh. Now this next one on the list causes more rage than Spawn killing a 9-year-old in Call of Duty. The Joy-Con drift was initially what I thought to be just kind of like a hardware issue with maybe I threw the Joy-Con down too hard or something and it just caused it to break. However, after doing some research, I found out there's actually a widespread anomaly that Nintendo has created where the joystick automatically starts drifting your cursor off screen or to the left or to the right, and you have to kind of reset it every time you want it to go back to normal. Apparently the drift issue wasn't just from broken Joy-Cons, but just bad programming overall. And this actually led to like lawsuits to Nintendo for having such a broken feature and such a crucial part of your whole console. Yeah, the drifting issue is basically your Joy-Con sensing movement when there's nothing there, and so it makes it a pain in the ass sometimes to play Smash when you're trying to pick your characters, or just actually any game at all. You can see why that would be a problem if you're just sitting there and your cursor is like drifting to the left or right of the screen all the time. Not a fun time. Now next up is one that everybody might not know about. This is like some gamer historian type beat. This beef is older than like a TikToker's grandparents. So basically back in 1991, Sony and Nintendo had made a joint announcement saying they had been working on a game system since 1989. So for 2 whole years that they had been working on this in secret. And back then, CD-ROMs were like hyped to all hell. It was like the next big thing. There's no more dusty cartridge that you gotta like blow out. Cartridges were in the future now. However, during their collaboration, Nintendo was kind of worried that Sony had been using them to like shoehorn their way into the gaming industry, which they were trying to have like a monopoly on like the CD-ROM thing. So the very next day after making the announcement to the general public saying they were working together, they dropped Sony, cut them off completely, and then partnered with their rival, who was Philips. So basically Nintendo just embarrassed Sony to all hell in front of the general public by announcing they were partnering with them, and then 24 hours later, if that, saying, actually, never mind, you know, Sony, we're gonna go with Philips. Now, after being embarrassed by Nintendo, Sony decided to do something about it and put all that research they were doing for them to good use, and thus the PlayStation was born. Basically, Nintendo just created one of their ultimate rivals by just not being an honest business partner. Now that's it for the list. I was also going to mention Nintendo's lack to support the culture that their games bring, such as like competitive Smash and just letting people see the gameplay of games they put out in general. But that's probably a video for another time. Now, if you like this, feel free to subscribe and leave a like down there. It helps us out a lot, and I will see you next time. Thanks for stopping by my den. You're welcome by anytime, and I'll catch you later.